Prime is the biggest brand ever made in recent history. Starting in only 2022 and growing to over 1 billion bottles sold in less than 2 years. And it was made by these two influencers, KSI and Logan Paul, who definitely have a lack of business experience in the past. So how did these two dudes make such a huge brand that basically everyone in the world has seen at least once? Well, they had some tricks up their sleeves, and they didn't do it alone. The story of Prime is one of extreme success and major controversy, so sit back and crack open a cold one, and let's see what Prime is really all about. You should also subscribe so that I may have enough to start my own drink company one day. Prime has to have the most insane come-up story of all time. Let me explain. The year was 2018 and KSI just demolished Joe Weller in a boxing match by no surprise to anyone. Joe Weller was basically a hard-shell taco being thrown around in the Taco Bell kitchen by an employee that had just been informed his pay was being cut. At the end of the match, KSI was allowed to call out the next opponent he wanted to fight, and while he could have gone with anyone, he made the decision to call out the Paul family. Some would say this was because he wanted to ridicule the Paul family for how obnoxious Jake and Logan were. Or maybe it was more personal than that. Perhaps KSI wanted to fight Jake Paul for acting like this big tough guy persona on the internet and he wanted to put him in his place. Or maybe he wanted Logan Paul in particular, because of the recent events Logan found himself from the Japan incident. Either wanted to throw him in the spotlight even more, or he wanted to give Logan a once in a lifetime chance to redeem his career and make the comeback of the century. Nah, let's beat his ass. They locked it on August 25th, 2018. Logan Paul would be chosen to fight KSI as the main event of the night, and they somehow got Lil Boy Deji to fight Jake Paul, but everyone knew how that was going to end. With press conferences scheduled, it was time to start promoting this fight, and Logan being in the position that he was in with this fight, he made the decision he was going to paint himself as the villain of this story. He didn't really have to decide because he was basically already the villain, but we kept him to believe that it was his choice, so we'll just keep it that way. Now, everyone who was going to watch this fight wanted to see the living light get beat out of YouTube's immature brat. And they kinda got what they wanted. The match consisted of not a lot of major hits and no one actually got knocked out. It ended in its infamous draw, and that was what we all paid to see. Thankfully though, Logan Paul and KSI saw the massive success they brought to the first fight, so it was a no-brainer for them to go for the rematch. And in just a year, on November 19th, 2019, they were back in the ring. This time, there was no remorse. It was going to be the most anticipated fight in YouTube and maybe even boxing history. Until Logan Paul decided to sneeze 3 times and completely throw the fight, ultimately giving KSI the dub and officially ending the 2-year-long saga. After the fight, things seemed to go back to normal. Logan kinda went back to vlogging, and KSI went back to doing his usual content with the Sidemen and his own channel. But all this time that Logan and KSI spent together over the past 2 years had made them realize that they weren't so different from each other. They both had similar interests and hobbies, and both had a growth mindset in making the name for themselves. And these similarities ended up morphing together to eventually make Prime. But why did they make it? Well, if you look at its founders, the answer starts to reveal itself quite quickly. Both KSI and Logan Paul are big advocates for sports, athleticism, and most importantly of all, competition. And looking into the athletic market, they noticed a gap that they knew they could fill with a better for you product. But there may be some other problems, but we'll get to that in a bit. Another difference Prime has from its competitors is that it utilizes 10% coconut water, which is known to include powerful vitamins including potassium, which can regulate muscle contractions without the risk of cramps. Has anyone ever told you when you get a cramp that you should either eat a banana or add more potassium to your diet? Well, that's the exact reason right there. The big competitors don't even come close to Prime's potassium levels either, ranking up to 10 times lower. So this new hydration beverage seems to be the best thing on the market, right? Well, it's definitely being marketed as such. Since its release, Prime has now become the official sports drink of the UFC, London Arsenal, Los Angeles Dodgers and Lakers, and finally FC Barcelona. For the non-sports fans out there that just drink Prime because it's associated with their favorite YouTuber, these collaborations could not have been any better. They managed to get the entire UFC sport, the most popular baseball and basketball team from Los Angeles, and got one of, if not the most popular Spanish football clubs and the 18th highest rated Spanish football team to sign with them to be their leading sports drink. For a company that opened its doors just 2 years ago, this seems almost impossible to think of, and it is to the average businessman. However, this isn't the case for Logan and JJ, and here's why. Logan Paul and KSI both had their respective starts on the internet. Logan got his start making comedy skits back in 2013 on the late Vine. may it rest in peace. And KSI got started making commentary videos on YouTube playing FIFA way back in 2009. While neither of these cases include much of a business background, it did come with a natural talent for marketing. When making content on social media becomes a passion of yours, you kinda just figure out how marketing works on whichever site you're using for your content. And this marketing knowledge can give you a little boost when it comes to mastering marketing in other areas of media as well, which is exactly what happened here with Logan and JJ. Since they both had a massive following and they managed to make their boxing events work as well as they did, they knew they could take on the task of making a product like Prime and make it one of the most popular brands out there. Nowadays, there isn't a kid that doesn't know what Prime is, but how did they actually pull that off? Let me break it down as simple as possible. They didn't. And here's what I mean by that. Logan Paul and KSI did not single-handedly make this brand. In the words of Post Malone, they had some help. Remember at the beginning of the video when I said that they had some tricks up their sleeves? Well, this trick was known as Congo Brands, a Kentucky-based company with the purpose of manufacturing and distribution. While Logan Paul and KSI may be the faces of Prime and hold a significant stake in their business, Congo Brands is actually the one pulling the strings on the day-to-day business, which makes sense because Logan and JJ can't just make all the Prime themselves. But with a manufacturer and distributor handling all the heavy lifting, this left the two of them to focus on not only the most important aspect of growing a business, but it's also what they're best at. Once they felt they could supply the demand for their new beverage, they took to social media and officially announced the good news in an Instagram livestream on January 4th, 2022. And the fans went berserk. Prime was selling bottle after bottle left and right insanely fast. So fast that it was selling out almost every day that the drinks were stocked. The only thing holding them back at this point was the manufacturing speed and the limited shelf space any new product is given when it releases in retail. Regardless, Prime went on to earn over $250 million in the first year, and $45 million of that was made in a single month. It was clear that they had something here, and the fans knew it too. However, there has been a slight controversy in the issue we just discussed. The constant selling out of the product made it to where there was a lot of phishing activity, where people would buy Prime in bulk and then proceed to resell it online at an upcharge to the unlucky folk who couldn't get their hands on it. Some say that Logan and JJ did this on purpose to grow the demand for the product and get the word spread out more, but I don't think this is the case. As I also said, any new product that gets released into retail starts out with having a very minimum amount of shelf space, and retailers do this to test the product to see how well the market responds to it. Let's say, for example, it sells fast and they constantly have to restock it. In that case, this is indicated as a good sign, and retailers will potentially think about giving the product more shelf space when they go about their yearly evaluation. If there's one thing that Logan and JJ did on purpose to the amount of Prime that was being sold, it's possible that they were responsible for making Prime a US only beverage for the first year or so. Logan is clearly from the US, born in Ohio, but KSI, the second half of the entire business's market, is not from the US, but from the UK instead. They didn't initially drop Prime in the UK, which made demand for it extremely high on KSI's side, which could have led to the issues that we discussed. But there's a counter argument here as well. Congo Brands, the company that manufactures and distributes Prime, is a Kentucky-based company and could very well have only had the rights to distribute their products only in the US of A. It's possible that they had to figure out their international distribution while only selling the product in the US. One way to think about it is that the UK might not have approved Prime if it was just a startup with no sales, but with massive sales to back it up from the US, they probably would have been more willing to approve distribution. Once they eventually figured out how to fix all of that, it was time for the money to start rolling in. Logan and JJ would go about advertising their product more, getting popular YouTubers to drink Prime, and even a handful of celebrities like Mark Cuban, Gordon Ramsay, Jamie Oliver, and dozens of others. This got all of those celebrities' fans to go out and try it, and it led to so much Prime being sold, it was ridiculous. Prime had gotten so massive, Logan and JJ even felt it was financially smart to buy themselves a Super Bowl commercial, which is right around $7 million for just 30 seconds of advertisement. But with Logan stating in the ad that Prime is the #1 fastest growing sports drink in history, it was obvious they could afford it. But all this attention can be both really good and really bad. Unfortunately for them, the future was not going to be as bright as it was currently looking to be. Nothing is truly perfect, unless you're the Water Rock Originals YouTube channel, which subscribing to gives you the ability to do anything you could ever imagine. But in Prime's situation, they were facing a terrible flaw in the product. In August 2023, Prime was faced with a lawsuit that claimed Prime was home to PFAS, or better known as forever chemicals. Prime had a study done on them where it was found that it contained and or or however the heck you pronounce those words. And these chemicals basically have trouble dissolving in liquids and stuff, so when you drink something that has it in there, it stays in your body for quite some time, which can lead to health complications later on. Oh, and they can give you cancer. Logan responded to this allegation through a 3-minute TikTok video claiming that there was no viable evidence to support the claim of these chemicals even existing in the product. Here's what he meant. The claim was that Prime contained 0.06 ppt of these chemicals, and that it was 3 times higher than what's in the water that you would drink in your entire lifespan in just 1 bottle of Prime. Without prior knowledge to what any of this means, it sounds terrifying, but Logan goes into detail about what all this means and why it's useless information. Whether this accusation was worth bringing to court or not, it was dismissed. But a company made by Logan Paul doesn't just have one accusation thrown at it and then go back to normal. There has actually been another lawsuit that has come up involving the marketing of their Prime Energy. Logan Paul and KSI's audiences are on the younger side on average. KSI makes content related to reaction type videos, and YouTube stats have shown that reaction videos have a younger audience. Logan can be considered a bit of a mixed audience since his videos are technically forwarded towards the late teens and early adults audiences, but children still find his content entertaining to watch. Given that information, when Prime is advertised on their platforms, that's the audience that it's getting advertised to. And when they released Prime Energy, kids were now drinking something that wasn't meant to be consumed by minors. In case you weren't informed, energy drinks were actually meant for people ages 18 or over. The issue with society is that we've regulated caffeine so much that it's okay to give children the access to energy enhancing beverages. But that's a story for Food Theory to cover, not me. However, the lawsuit with Prime states that advertising of energy drinks to people under the age of 18 is wrongful even if not directly implied. Logan Paul responded to this as well in an interview with Fox News, stating that kids cannot be mistaking the hydration and energy drink products and that the packaging is very distinct. He also stated that his energy drink was of the average caffeine levels just to assure that it's of market regulation, just in case someone came on later to say that it didn't or something. What I find interesting about this is the number of kids I hear about drinking energy drinks is extremely high, and yet because Prime is associated with a YouTube influencer with a broken past, gets the front page of the gossip news and attempts to tarnish the brand or Logan himself. I honestly feel bad for KSI too, because he's been having to deal with these issues as well simply because he's just a business partner. But that's what happens when you're one of YouTube's most influential creators trying to create a consumer brand like Prime. You get a lot of attention and it's not always good.